we just watched an extraordinary press conference from the FBI and local authorities in Tucson, Arizona, in connection with the disappearance of Savannah Guthrie's mother, Nancy Guthrie. There have been several new items released by the police and the FBI there that were not out in the public before. Okay, I'm just going to give you a couple off the top of my head, and then we're going to go through them and the sound bites with our panel in 1 second. He's offered more details on the timeline. Okay, so for the first time, we heard that the doorbell camera disconnected at 1:47 a.m. We knew that Nancy was dropped back off at her home around 9:45 p.m. on Saturday night. Now they have it down to 9:48 to 9:50 because they saw that the garage door, there's a timer on it, I guess, was opened at 9:48 and it was closed at 9:50. So that, we believe, is when she got back home. Then he told us for the first time at 1:47 a.m., the doorbell camera disconnected. Boom. That's the beginning of the crime. That's obviously what he's trying to tell us. By 12:12 a.m., the doorbell software, though they have no video, he now confirmed, but the software did detect a person on camera. They have a written notification from, we were told that it was a Nest camera by Ashley Banfield, that it was a written notification, person on camera or person at the door. And you'll get that if you have a Ring Cam or a Nest Cam. And they don't have video of it because it looks like Nancy Guthrie did not have a subscription to the Nest camera, which is by Google. And in order to get video of any particular moment, you have to have a subscription. Unfortunately, she didn't. And so all we have now, according to the sheriff, is a written record that there was a person at the door at 12:12 a.m. Detects person on camera. Now, he did say could have been an animal. You know, he's not giving complete credibility to the eye of the Nest camera, but we are getting a timeline here. 1:47 a.m., doorbell camera disconnects, and then 13:12, let's say 25 minutes later, right? 13 plus 12, yeah, there is 25 minutes later, the software detected a person on camera. So it's interesting to ask yourself what was going on in that time. It was 2:28 a.m. that her pacemaker app showed a disconnection. She got far enough away from it that it stopped communicating with her Apple phone, which was left inside the house. So by 12:28 a.m., we're guessing she was out of the house. All right, so that's about a 45-minute period, 43-minute period entirely that this whole thing went down. And the sheriff walked us all through it. He also appeared to confirm that they did tow Annie Guthrie's car. He wasn't as clear as we would like. He got very sort of jumbly with his words and seemed to just be saying, oh, this is a matter of course. Yeah, we took a car. Well, the only car we know of is Annie Guthrie's, at least we think we know of, per the Ashley Banfield reporting yesterday, that her source was saying police had towed and impounded Annie's car. He was asked about it. He fudged the answer a little bit. We'll get into it, but that was an interesting thing. He said that they have no one of interest and they do not have, he said, we have no one you would consider a prime suspect. We're just not there. But he's now shifting his on-the-record statements about that involved Annie Guthrie's husband, Tomas, and I don't know why he's doing that. He went on the record with the New York Times yesterday saying it wasn't Annie Guthrie who dropped her mother back off, which they'd originally reported. It was Tomas. So he made that change himself with the New York Times. It was picked up everywhere, Fox and Hollywood Reporter, you name it. Now today he was asked about it and he wiggled again. Today he shifted to, well, let's just say it was family. Well, why are we just saying it was family? Who was it? Why would you be shifting it and making a point of that? So there's all sorts of interesting things. And then the FBI agent got out there. And while they'd been so careful about not disclosing any information about the ransom note, I think we now know virtually everything. We know that it set a deadline of 5 p.m. today by which to send the Bitcoin. We know that it named two things. We heard TMZ earlier today say there were things in there that turned out to be true that the writer of the ransom note referenced. And we believe they were actual true references to the crime scene. And therefore, we, TMZ, are taking it seriously. And we believe that law enforcement is. Well, the FBI agent got up there and told us what they were. So we'll play that for you in just a second. Anyway, we learned a lot. We're going to go through it with Jonathan Gilliam. He's formerly of the FBI himself. Also joining me is Chad Ayers. He's former SWAT team leader. And Jim Fitzgerald is back with me now, former FBI himself and profiler. Guys, thank you for being here. All right, let's just go down the line on what you thought was most interesting in that presser. Chad, let me start with you because we haven't heard from you yet today. What was your biggest takeaway?
Honestly, it's that 5 p.m. deadline that we saw. And Megyn, I don't know if you picked up on it. It's almost like the agent went to the rack back there, and it's almost like that rack had a copy of that ransom note in his, because they kept going back and looking at it. So whether those are just notes that he's made, or did he actually have the ransom note on his person, obviously, or a copy of it, who knows? But the whole idea that is so confusing to me is why, and again, the other panelists hopefully can, give their expertise, but why the wishy-washiness back and forth? That's the frustrating part. Listen, I get it. We live in a time where viewers, the American people, are heavily invested in this case. It almost takes me back to the Kohlberger case and the frustrations that the American people had and the viewers had of what's going on. Why are we not getting the answers that we want? But we do know that Idaho and that agency had a lot going on behind the scenes. So could that be happening? Yes. But I don't know. I feel like from the presser now, sure, we did get a great deal of information on that timeline, but, is there more to it? And they are just, for the integrity of the investigation, keeping that tight-lipped? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Now we're on the subject of what was in the ransom note. Let me play for you in part that soundbite. Here's the FBI special agent in charge speaking to what appears to have been in there that may have lended credibility to it, or maybe not. SOT 103.
Why this one?
Because this was the ransom that came in, and it had facts associated with a deadline, with a monetary value they were asking for. So at that point,
what were some of those facts, if you can, because there's been a lot of speculation, as you know, if you could set the record straight.
Yeah, the ransom itself, one talked about an Apple Watch and one talked about a floodlight. We're not going to go into specifics. It's very important that we keep this investigation moving forward, and we don't want to put more facts out there that others then can use to try to profit from them.
One talked about an Apple Watch, one talked about a floodlight. But he also said later, Jonathan, that because one of the reporters, I think it was Brian Enton, who was on this show, we were just talking about this issue, raised the issue of, well, when do we think the ransom note was written? Because we all heard that there was an Apple Watch at this scene very early on in this case. And the agent acknowledged that, and even acknowledged whatever's in there about a floodlight, he said could have been seen from the road. So what may have started out sounding very credible may not be at all. Anyway, what was your biggest takeaway today?
Well, that's right. And that was the questions that I was having. Were those things said? Were they released in a press conference? And so it kind of degrades the reliability of that information. I was wondering if she had an iWatch. A lot of people have an iPhone, have an iWatch, and could be synced. Both of those things could be synced to her pacemaker. But I did take some notes, Megyn, if I can go through those real quick, about things that I found that were very interesting and very telling. One is that the FBI did not rule out Bitcoin, right? So they didn't say that Bitcoin was not an issue. So if that's the case, I'd like to know if any of the relatives have any issue with Bitcoin, where they're invested heavily in Bitcoin, or they are experts. There's a lot of people that consider themselves experts in Bitcoin. I'd also like to know, at 1:47, it says the camera went offline, but then it says at 2:12, the software detected a person on camera. So I'm kind of confused on that. Were there two cameras? Because we've been told there were two cameras. What camera did they see somebody online? Did the software detect somebody? Because the camera going offline, perhaps if there was no movement around that area that the camera went offline, and then when somebody moved in front of it, it came back online. They're not clear about that, so I would like some clarification.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. I hadn't put that together. If the doorbell camera was disconnected at 1:47 a.m., then how was the software detecting a person on camera at 2:12?
Right. So that to me is, I would like to know it because if somebody saw somebody coming from the front, or if they were coming from the back. If they came from the back, for instance, that tells me they're sneaking in. If they came from the front, they could still be sneaking in, but it might be the fact that they just walked in the front. So these are details that I really want to know in these press conferences that I don't think go above and beyond giving away secrets or information. There's a couple other things. I want to know what family member checked on her. So we know who dropped her off now. Who made the call? Because we've seen
on Sunday morning,
because we've seen in the past where, I don't know if you know this statistic, but 20% of the people who call in and report a murder are the people who actually did the murder. So
what?
Yes. And so I would like to know who called in, because it's often that it could be the person that had something to do with this, because as you said earlier in the show, she doesn't attend church. She attends church virtually. So this whole...
We think. That's based on one report from the Daily Mail, not yet totally confirmed by all of us.
So where did the concern come from? Did somebody call her earlier? Had they not heard from her? And so where did this come up? That was another thing. I would like to know if anybody in the family is under a financial burden. I'd like to know who benefits from her if she dies. Of course, these are things that are common questions. And was there any landscaping going on in and around that house? That's how Elizabeth Smart got targeted, was an individual was doing the landscaping and then came in through a window that was left open. There was no robbery that we know of. So that tells me that this was either a personal issue with getting rid of her for a benefit or because of anger, or it was for a kidnapping and a ransom. But the ransom thing it just doesn't happen that often anymore. So that's a whole nother game to kidnap somebody for a ransom. That is a huge game, and that is something that gets very technical very quick, and you have to be a very smart criminal to carry that out. But what we typically see is that people who commit a crime, such as a killing or a kidnapping or a robbery, will use a ruse, such as some type of a ransom. And so that's why I want to know who in that family or who that they know may know about Bitcoin, because either they're the ones going to benefit from it or they're the ones using it for a ruse. So these are questions that I had that came through all this stuff.
TMZ did verify that the Bitcoin account that was mentioned in the ransom notes is a legit account, but they're so hard to trace. You were going to say something, Chad?
Yeah. Now, was I under the impression that she was, and do we know the distance between their residence and where she went to her daughter's residence? Because it wasn't
10 minutes, according to Brian Enton.
Okay. And didn't they mention that there was
4
an
miles.
Uber driver took her there? But then
an Uber driver took her to the daughter's and son-in-law's house for dinner. And then we were told by this sheriff in the New York Times yesterday, the son-in-law brought her home. And now today, he wouldn't go that far. Today, he was specifically asked who brought her home, and he wouldn't say it. I don't know why. We'll play it in a second. We're still getting all of our sound bites together. He also was asked, as I mentioned, are you specifically looking into the son-in-law? And here's what he said, SOT 107.
Are you actively investigating the son-in-law in this case? I know there were reports earlier this week, and you refuted that. You said you haven't eliminated everybody. Have you eliminated him or come close to it, or are you actively looking at him?
We're actively looking at everybody we come across in this case. Everybody. We would be irresponsible if we didn't talk to everybody, the Uber driver, the gardener, the pool person, whoever.
Okay, so he didn't, I'm going to bring Jim in a second, but Chad, he didn't rule him out. He said, we're talking to everybody.
Yeah, but Megyn,
what did you make of that?
Well, here's the thing. He's also said, we believe, either him or the FBI agent says, we believe she's still alive. And if he is our prime suspect, then he's not acting alone. If we believe she's still alive, well, where is she and who's got custody of her? You know, if that's the case, and you're telling the American people, we believe she is still alive, but we know where the son-in-law is, well, then they're not acting alone, Megyn.
Well, I mean, I see what you're saying. If she's, well, I mean, he could have, like, a worst case scenario, if it's somebody close to the family or in the family, they could have hidden her someplace.
Sure.
And be keeping her in some sort of a, prison, a makeshift prison, which would free him up. But the cops are all over him right now. You're right. I mean, like, if he did this, they're all over him. The media is all over him. There's no, like, going and checking on your kidnapped charge. If he's taking care of her at all in order to get proof of life, this is just a completely imagined scenario. He would need some help. Here is a question to the sheriff about proof of life and whether Nancy's alive. Here's SOT 102.
Sheriff over here, has there been any proof of life, and has there been any sign of life?
I'm going to anything to deal with the ransom notes and that I would defer to the FBI, but no, to my knowledge, we're still looking for Nancy.
Okay. So, Jim, your thoughts on what we witnessed today?
Yeah, not only the profiler, but the forensic linguist, and we would really like to see that letter. I think there may be so many clues in that. I don't know if it's 5 sentences or 15 or more. There's definitely some information in there that I think someone who knows language could determine a lot from it. I also find it odd that there are 2 deadlines listed, like 5 o'clock today, but then we really mean it by Monday afternoon. Usually kidnap, ransom, and again, there aren't that many of these that are legitimate. They are very demonstrative and deliberate, and here's our demands. You will not violate it. There can be, give and take room to go back and forth, the amount, the time frame, whatever. But usually they want to set up, they're in control. Here's exactly what we want and when we want it. Interestingly, Megyn, about 20 years ago, still in the FBI, I developed an acronym called POMIC. And it stands for a lot of syllables here: post-offense, manipulation of investigation, communication. You can see why I made it an acronym. And what that basically is, when a crime is committed, to cover it up, to make it stage look like it's going somewhere else, people will write a letter, send it to the police, lawyers, the media, leave it somewhere to be found. And that is designed to misdirect the investigation. So I'm not ruling out that this is a legitimate kidnapping, ransom communication. It may be. But it also could be either a BS, someone playing games with it just for fun, kicks and giggles, or somebody else who was involved in the abduction. And Megyn, the first couple minutes we spoke, we delineated this abduction was for one of 2 reasons: for profit or for revenge. And if it is a revenge thing and they decide, hey, people are getting close, let me put this bogus thing out to TMZ and some other news station and make it look like it's a real kidnapping, when it may not be. But nonetheless, having said that, the FBI has to follow through and go every method they can to determine the provenance of that communication and who wrote it.
Mm-hmm. So there was an interesting comment by TMZ where they basically said that the letters told us, we don't want to talk. Just give us our money. Listen here. This is today from TMZ, SOT 116.
So the final thing about the letter, and again, we're not going to get into all the details, but when the family is reaching out to say we're ready to talk, this letter suggests no talk. Right. That was made clear right at the beginning.
Yeah, and so I think that the family sitting down and speaking that way, that they are trying to change the minds of the abductors, and hoping that they actually will, one, provide that proof of life, but also clearly there was an attempt to humanize not just Nancy, but also themselves, to say, look, we desperately want our mother back.
All right, so hold on to that in your head and listen to SOT 108 from the FBI.
Does the ransom note that you're working establish any communication protocols in it?
No, it does not. And that is what I think is important, that if someone has Nancy and is demanding the ransom, that there is communication with the family. We talked about has been no proof of life, and there was no other demands within that letter. So they're still waiting for communication.
So there it is, Jim. if this is the actual hostage taker, if she's being held hostage and the ransom note is from her kidnapper, that person doesn't want to talk. He just wants his Bitcoin.
But I'll play both sides of the coin here, Megyn. If it's also someone covering up their revenge abduction of this person, they don't want to talk either, because it's a better way to identify them and pick up some kind of a motive. So very convenient to put in the letter, the communication, I don't want to talk. Again, it can argue in both directions or neither direction, but nonetheless, it's not uncommon for people to write. Again, these letters are very rare, these communications. The Lindbergh kidnapping had about a half a dozen different communications, but again, there was no social media back then. Even telephones were in the early days. So now it's a little bit different, and we'll see if some other communication comes in. If they want the money, they put a lot of effort into this case. This is a high-risk crime. If they want the money, they're not going to harm Mrs. Guthrie, and they're going to somehow further communicate with the family. Otherwise, this is all for naught, all risk with no gain if, in fact, they don't get the money out of this. So they may want to consider talking to the family.
International disputes, inflation, rising national debt, digital currency. There is a never-ending list of reasons that gold has risen over 700% in the last 20 years. And a never-ending list of reasons smart Americans diversify a portion of their savings into precious metals with Birch Gold Group. Gold can thrive during uncertainty, which is why it's a crucial part of a balanced strategy. It gives you peace of mind, given all the events that could impact the U.S. economy. See if holding gold in a tax-sheltered retirement account is right for you. Birch Gold can help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. Just text MK to the number 989898 to receive your free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, just useful information. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, consider letting Birch Gold help you diversify with gold, so you too can have peace of mind regardless of the uncertainty. Text MK to the number 989898. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.